My bad. I accidentally stopped the recording for the first part. But don't worry, we're continuing now. Um, yeah, and I remember now. Yeah, I was finna say the breath style ended it up. Fuck, I said ended it up. I ended up messing up the name, and then accidentally pressed the end button when I remembered it, going to start it. So I'm gonna finish off this part really quickly. Really quick. Get your nail off that. Before you rip it. Stop. My fault. My cat. Now, like I was saying, he would get into the first stance of his form. By the way, he doesn't have specific stances for his forms, so he can do them even while in the air. He doesn't need to be in a certified stance. Well, for most of them, but for this one specifically, he kind of does. As he would say, 1,000 sword. I said 1,000 swords. Demonic, 1,000 demonic breath style, first form. As he would draw his blade and his hood would come off, and they would see his red eyes. As only the only people who caught it the first time, where the clan head and the leaders of the Tokito family and the Kamado family, aka Muichiro and Yuichiro's father and Tanjiro's father. And so people at first, like, the first thing that came to their head was demon. But then they'd see Tanjiro swing his blade as it would shatter, like it would start, like it would piece out, as he'd say, blade whip of, he'd say demonic blade whip, my bad, demonic blade whip. And this would slash the guy across, like his straight across his chest, and then Tanjiro would swing it back around as it would cut across his back, and then he would retract the blade as he'd land with his hand on the back of the blade, and it would start to piece itself back together as it'd be shining this purple. And the guy would have been on the ground. He wouldn't be unconscious, nor would he be dead. He would just be laying there, and he would be bleeding. He would feel weak. By the way, Tanjiro has made it to where now the blade does not take from the person he's fighting unless they're a demon or have demonic tendencies. No, unless they're a demon. Like, yeah, so it no longer drains breath styles from people he's attacking, but it still takes the breath style away from anyone who tries to steal his blade. Like, if they have any ill intent while grabbing his blade, it absorbs all of their techniques and they would have to start over from scratch. But they can never use the same breathing style ever again. Yeah, so the thing lessens. It isn't all breathing styles anymore. It's just one. Yeah, but like I was saying, so after all of this, the guy would start to stand up, and Tanjiro's blade would have now been fully reconnected, as he would dash at the guy, who would grit his teeth and start to use the second form of thunder breathing. But Tanjiro wouldn't allow for it, as he would swing his blade as it would wrap around the guy, and then it would make this energy field as the guy would go to attack him, and he would just ram into this barrier of energy, as Tanjiro would call it, his second form, demonic barrier blades, as all of the shards would shoot in at the guy. But he would use the first form using sixfold to bounce off the blade shards, and he would shoot up into the air, as one of the shards would have been on the bottom of his foot, as he would push off it straight at Tanjiro, who would now seem defenseless, as the guy who now even thinks Tanjiro is a demon would yell, "Die, you demon," and he would swing at Tanjiro's neck, but Tanjiro would simply dodge it and then palm strike him in the chest as he'd go flying out of the ring, and Tanjiro's blade would reconnect to itself and he would go back to normal. Now, Tanjiro, now being, back to his black-eyed self, would stand there as he pulled his hood back over his head, and the elders of each family besides his father would be standing there with their blades ready surrounding Tanjiro, As Tanjiro would look at them and ask, is something the matter? But they would ask him, when did he become a demon? But Tanjiro would simply point up as the sun is blaring down at him, as he'd say, when I have already died to that thing if I were a demon. And them knowing that he's not wrong would ask then what's up with his eyes, as he'd say that's just an ability that he's able to use because of the blade. It enhances all of his techniques and powers, well, all of his techniques and his body to the maximum, meaning he always performs at his top shape. And he says, while using this mode, I never get tired. I never feel fatigued, and I can never, well, I won't say I can't be defeated, but you are very loud today. But yeah, he would say that he can be defeated. He's not a demon. He doesn't regenerate, but a normal attack that would kill a human wouldn't kill him. So being stabbed in the chest wouldn't kill him. And he'd say, well, as long as I have those eyes activated, if somehow I could not activate the red-eyed mode, then I'm a fleshy human who's just overpowered, I guess. Nice. He'd say that he's strong in his normal state, and he, like normal humans, become tired very easily. But in his... Yo, bro, what's up with you? What's up with you? Bro, I'm recording. Come on now. But yeah, he would say, while in the red-eyed state, he can forever just use all the techniques he wants. He does not get tired. He does not feel any strain on his body, and he does not feel pain. It's not a good thing that he doesn't feel pain. Well, he doesn't feel that, like, he knows when pain is inflicted upon him or whenever he gets attacked. It's just that he doesn't feel the damage until after he goes back to normal, as he'd point at a small cut on his hand, which would have been inflicted when the guy came bum rushing at him. He'd say that the sparks from his thunder breathing cut my hand when I palm striked him, meaning that he learned the lightning body technique, which is something that only high-ranking thunder breathing users know. And he'd say his isn't perfected, and it most likely happened unconsciously. But that guy could become seriously powerful if he learned to control it. And now I'm going to explain the body thing that all hunters know. Everyone can use a body enhancing technique. Tanjiro's just so happened to enhance his entire body. So water breathing enhances your full body, but it only encases you in water, like a layer of water, which protects you from most, if not all, damage, depending on how strong you are. So a Hashira like Giyu would be completely impervious to attacks of a lower moon and under. Sun breathing users have sun body, or the sun ring. Basically, it's, hold on, I got a picture of it. Sun breathing users have this ring behind them, and basically it allows for them to it makes it to where if a demon gets in a certain range of them, they start to disintegrate as if they were in front of an actual sun. The rest I will explain later on, but these two are very important since Nezuko is fighting against a prodigy of water breathing who is Tomioka's younger brother. By the way, Tomioka's family is not dead in this. Most people's families aren't dead in this because a lot of people are, demon slayers now. So they aren't, a lot of them aren't dead. Now, we're going to go back to here. Now, like I was saying. So, after this, Tanjiro would just say that, listen, I really don't. Well, I'm not a demon. And if you want to attack me because you think I am, I will be forced to retaliate. But as you can see, I am calmly standing in front of the sun and I'm not, dying. So you would attack me for no reason. And since my clan head, he would glance up at the elder of the Tsuchikuni clan, then he would look at his father, then the head of the Muichiro family, well, the Tokito family, Tokito is crazy, Tokito, whatever, of their family would also be there, as he'd say, attacking me in front of those three would be a big mistake since we are the powerhouse family. So killing off a powerhouse of our family would result in you either having to pay a fine or having one of each of your children crippled because of the damages. And then my sister might end up killing one of your children since we are pretty close. As they'd see that Nezuko is having to be held back by her friend, which is Kanao. Yes, Kanao is her friend. They have met on multiple occasions, and she has always like Kanao isn't as shy as she was in canon, since she is a biological sister of almost said Nezuko, of Shinobu in this. Her and Aoi, bro, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Those two are biological sisters of Shinobu in this. So yeah, she isn't depressed in this one, and she is very close to Nezuko. So she is holding back Nezuko, who was trying to attack the elders that rushed at her brother. And so them not obviously they're not scared of Nezuko, but you know, the threat of them losing one of their children to Nezuko's hands and having their children crippled because of, you know, the other elders would be bad. Plus they know they can't handle those three. But that's when a demon would jump at Tanjiro, and he would sense it as well as everyone else. This would be the demon that's invisible with Kokoshibo, who would have already left, as he would have told the demon to kill him. As like I said, this guy is upper 7, I think I said? Upper 7? I could be wrong. I mean, not upper 7. The new lower 7. Because his power isn't useful, but it's useful. It makes them invisible. Kokoshibo isn't watching, as he assumed that the guy was just going to kill Tanjiro and leave, but he jumped in at the worst possible time. He should have jumped in while he was fighting. By the way, he was not fighting Zenitsu. He was fighting what's the guy name? I can't remember his name, low-key. The one that ended up betraying Zenitsu and Jigoro, or Zenitsu's grandpa. Yeah. The dude with the black hair, I cannot remember his name for some reason. Like, I legit cannot remember his name. But yeah, him, he would end up being there. By the look in his eyes, Kokoshibo figured out that this guy would end up either becoming a threat to the demon slayers or becoming a demon, altogether. But he didn't care to grab him since he didn't seem to have potential. My bad. Like I said, my cousin stayed over, so you know. He kind of here, and he keep walking in and out of my room, and that's who you heard in the background. So yeah. Now, like I was saying, so after this, like I said, bro, why the fuck can't I remember his name? Kaigaku, that's what his name was, Kaigaku. Yeah, that motherfucker. He would see that he has potential, but he just isn't gonna, you know, be a great demon slayer. He has potential to be a great demon-ish if trained by the right person, and he has potential to be a great threat to other, to low-ranking demon slayers, but he wouldn't be a great demon slayer himself. And so Tanjiro would, you know, the elders would have already disbanded, would start walking away from Tanjiro, but when they sensed a demon, they could sense the demonic aura around Tanjiro's blade. They knew he wasn't, at first they thought he was the demon, but then they sensed, oh, it's just the blade when he explained it. And then they wanted to confiscate his blade, but them remembering what the blade does would just shudder away and wouldn't even voice that idea. So, the demon, like I said, would rush Tanjiro. 1 second, my mouth is feeling dry as shit. Alright, I'm back. So yeah, like I was saying, the demon that only has invisibility would summon a weapon, like he can make talisman that does certain things, and this talisman can hold a weapon, and this would be a dagger. He would jump at Tanjiro, but Tanjiro would just slightly take out his thousand demon dagger, as it would be enough for shards of the blade to come out, and it would make like a shield in front of him that would block the attack, as he can like perfectly sense where the demon was, and he can even see him. Why? Because of see-through world, obviously. And when he would block, obviously other people couldn't see it. They just heard the clash of it, and they can see the sparks off of the two like clashing. And the demon would be yelling at him to die, since he would be a threat, since no one should be able to use this weapon. And at first, like even before the elders could move, Tanjiro went to further draw out his blade to use the rest of it to attack with. But Nezuko would have came overhead, since she also has see-through world, would cleave its head off, as the head would fall to the ground and the body would become visible. Not the head, since the talisman is on the head. She would look at it as the head would disintegrate, and then the body would slowly disintegrate after, since it had a vitality thing on it, as it was hoping that using that talisman, if its head got cut off, it would use the talisman to regrow its head. But no matter how hard it tried, the talisman didn't work, and that's because Tanjiro's blade was already stuck into the demon. He just felt for some reason that he needed to stab into the demon, and so he would. His blade would be whole again, and he'd stab into it, as the darkness from the demon would be drained out of it, as the blade's energy would get stronger, and Tanjiro would feel this aura surrounding him, as now he has his own aura, and it naturally feels demonic, but you can tell it's human. It's just eerily, it's just an eerie, dreadful feeling. And Tanjiro, it only activates when his eyes are red. He would deactivate red eyes after this, as we're gonna call it his killer eyes. Why not? He would deactivate his killer eyes, as he would go back to normal. He'd be relaxing, and then he'd feel something different about himself. He would check himself to see if, anything was different, but nothing. But he could feel something was different. So he'd go to a mirror, and his his hair was already, black, but it had red tips, and he had a mark on his forehead. The mark was no longer visible. It was gone, but he still had the effects of it. His body was still naturally just buff. And the effects of gaining the thousand demon dagger didn't make it better. So he wasn't in worse shape than when he's, but if anything, he had gotten better. He had felt a lot better. He was actually suffering the effects of the Demon Slayer mark. Nezuko, no, but he was kind of it was just slowly happening. But when he absorbed the demon's body, the aura from the demon's body that had the vitality talisman on it, all the effects vanished. He still has the effects of a Demon Slayer mark. He just doesn't have the Demon Slayer mark death effects. He would not die at age 25. For some reason, he just knows this for a fact. And he obviously knows that Nezuko won't either, since her body is like Yorichi's. She's able to just completely nullify the effects on her lonesome. Nezuko would see that Tanjiro's mark faded and would assume it's because of the sword, and he wouldn't tell them why, since he already made his, deduction, or he already figured out why and what happened. And so he would think, okay, I can get stronger by absorbing from demons. And so, him and Nezuko would go to take the, they would already say they wanted to take the Demon Slayer exam. Or, what was it called? The Demon Slayer, we're going to call it the Demon Slayer exam, right? So they would go to take it, and obviously They could become Hashira from here, and they would, but wouldn't. See, they killed more than what was needed. Since they were there for a week, they just cleared the forest. They saved people and cleared the forest themselves, as since no one else really was in their rankings during their year, since they went there younger than what they would have, well, what Tanjiro would have in canon. So they would be demon slayers, and by the way, they ended up killing the demon since Tanjiro ended up killing it. Nezuko knew about Urodaki's situation and what happened to him. And when Tanjiro told her about the demon he killed, she would write a message, and a crow that she has, and she is technically a demon slayer already, she's just not formally one. The crow would take the letter to Urokodaki, and he would cry reading the contents, as the two children who would be on the boulder, he would for the only time see them, as they would wave and bow to him, thanking him for his teachings, as they would fade into nothingness. And he would cry even harder as he got to see his, two of his students. No, not just those two. All of his previous students that died. He got to see them all. And they all thanked him for his teachings. And they wanted him to move on, to be happier. And one spirit would leave, but it wouldn't fade, as it would take one last stop, as it would visit its friend. By the way, Sabito and the rest still ended up dying. Yes. Why? Because I'm gonna say that even though, I said a lot of stuff didn't happen because of teamwork, I'm gonna just say this did happen. But I'm gonna say he isn't depressed because of it. Like, he's still sad and cries often about it, but now, like, he's gotten used to it. But on his way to sleep, he would see a spirit standing before him. At first, he thought it was a demon since it was glowing. He swung his sword at its head, but a blade would stop it, as he'd say, "Quick as usual, aren't you?" And he'd recognize the voice and look up at its face, and he'd cry, saying, "Sabito." And his sister, who would have heard the clang of swords, as well as his younger brother, would have rushed in, and they'd see him hugging this glowing figure, as he would apologize to Sabito for being such a weakling and for not being able to handle himself during the final selection. But Sabito would say that was nonsense and that he saved people as well. And in this one, Tomioka did not kill any demons. Tomioka learned a lot and was pretty strong. In fact, he excelled at water breathing, so much so that he made dead calm while Sabito was still alive. It's just that he couldn't use these techniques because he was caught off guard in this one. He was caught off guard by a demon that hit him above his eyebrow, that caused him to start bleeding and almost faint. But Sabito, like in canon, saved him, went to fight the hand demon. But Sabito in this one only lost because he got impatient and he got angry. He rushed in, and the demon saw through his attack, and it used multiple hands to block his attack. And, well, like in canon, killed him. And so Sabito would tell Giyu that he's proud of who he is and doesn't want him to grieve over him anymore. He wants him to move on. And he would tell Giyu that he should thank a certain pair of kids. They actually were the ones to kill the hand demon, and he's pretty grateful for him. As Tomioka would assume he meant that, Nezuko didn't, since everyone knows that Nezuko is a prodigy and that she and her twin brother were taking the exam. But he would say that it wasn't her, it was the boy. And this would shock Giyu, as he didn't hear about what happened during the tournament the day before. The day before. Well, the week before, since a week had passed by now. And so he would tell him all about what happened during the exam, and he would tell them how excellent and how perfect Tanjiro's wild but clean fighting style is. It is so perfect that he has no openings, even though his techniques are so formless. And he would say that it seemed the kid only kept getting stronger. He would stab a demon after they were already disintegrating with his sword. And at first I thought he was just, you know, desecrating the dead, but it seemed as if his blade was absorbing the power from them, and it further strengthened him. As the kid feels as if he was a demon, but he isn't. This kid is just powerful, and he is like the definition of powerful. This kid is almost the perfect demon slayer. He is almost as strong as how rumored Yorichi was stated to be. And Giyu would take this, and like after him and Sabito caught up, Sabito would pass on, and Giyu would take this to the master, as he would tell him what he heard from Sabito. At first the master thought at first all the other Hashira thought he was joking. But Shinobu would say that she saw Tanjiro in action, and Tanjiro came in second in the tournament, as he forfeited against his sister, not wanting to fight against her. And she would say that he did indeed absorb the power of a demon, and she was there to witness it. And the Tokito twins would say that they also know about Tanjiro and were also there to see him do this. And it seemed as if him and his sister would make a great duo, and if they really did clear the forest like Tomioka is stating, then they would be great candidates to be Hashira. And so after going to the forest, they would like actually see that there are no demons in that forest at all. And if there are, they are hiding. Like those demons were hiding. That's how bad it had gotten. Like they legitimately were killing themselves to dig holes into trees to hide, but even they weren't spared. It was only legitimately one demon that had made it, only because it was the final day, and Tanjiro and Nezuko were on the other side of the forest, and Tanjiro didn't want to grow his sword and then swing down because he didn't want to cut a path for demons to get out of the forest from. So he left that one demon alive, but he knew it was there, and the demon itself knew that Tanjiro knew it was there. It was shitting bricks when Tanjiro just randomly looked in its direction on the final day, but he just left. And the demon would be asking the Hashira, like all of the Hashira would be there. Like when I say there are hundreds of Hashira, currently there are hundreds of Hashira. Actually, there are exactly 100 Hashira. And when I say that these Hashira are as strong as all of the Hashira are as strong as not Guillaume. They are all as strong as Sanemi is inside. No, I'm gonna say they are as strong as Kokoshibo in the actual manga, actual anime. But everyone is stronger in this universe. This universe, people are as strong as Kokoshibo, but Kokoshibo in this universe is as strong as past Yorichi, and the Yorichi of this verse is like God to everyone. Like this man could one shot anyone, like everyone combined still couldn't beat this variation of Yorichi. Even the canon counterpart of Yorichi couldn't beat this version of Yorichi. That's how cracked he is. And so the fact he lost to the fact that he died was like everyone knows that he only died because he didn't have another breath to take while fighting his brother. That was the only reason the 80-year-old Yorichi died. And so them hearing that Tanjiro could infinitely grow just by killing demons and absorbing their powers into his sword, they would see Tanjiro as the perfect being to take the former throne of Yorichi, but no one wanted to say this out loud, since there are people of the Tsuchikuni clan up in these Hashira, and they are starting to hate Tanjiro. They do not want him to be known as better than them, since they are, So they were they were planning to put Tanjiro on trial up in their clan since demon slayers cannot interfere with clan matters. And but like I was saying, the demon they would have met would have been pleading and begging them to kill him, as he did not want to run into Tanjiro ever again. He felt that kid's demonic presence and he wanted to die. Muzan himself would be shitting bricks in that presence. Those were the exact words of the demon. Please kill me. I do not want to face a monster that even Muzan himself would be shitting bricks in front of. And that, by the way, it's saying Muzan is what got it killed. The Hashira didn't kill it. Him said, like, it just blatant, like, it was so terrified it said Muzan without being scared of Muzan's name. Like, that's how scared it was. Well, Muzan Kibutsuchi, but yeah, like the demon, like, it would be so terrified. It said his name and ended up dying because of it. And so after this, they would go return this info to the master, but the Tsuchikunin clansmen would go and tell this to the head of the clan. And the head of the clan would call up Tanjiro and put him against the strongest Hashira that is currently there, which is a sun-breathing user. He is 32 years old, and he is, like, he was a Hashira before, like, mostly everyone. Well, if not everyone, up in the current Hashira group. And he's stronger than everyone. He's the only, like, the person that's second to him is his younger brother, who is 25, and then it's Guillaume, and then it's others after that. So he would put Tanjiro up against this guy, and we're gonna call this guy Matsuko, or not, just a filler name for right now, Matsuko. Matsuko would look at Tanjiro and he would scoff, not believing a word of what that demon said. He felt as if the demon was just exaggerating and that Tanjiro's presence was the reason it got scared of him, because he can feel that Tanjiro's presence isn't normal. And Tanjiro would bow slightly to his uncle. But the guy would just wave it off, saying he didn't need the pleasantries. He's just here to test him, to see if he's worthy of being a Hashira. He acknowledges Nezuko, but he won't acknowledge him since he knows Tanjiro can't use breathing styles. And Tanjiro would pull his hood over his head as he would say, alright, let's do this. And as soon as he touched his blade, his eyes would go red, and this huge amount of pressure would be placed upon him. As everyone who would be there, every Hashira would be there. The master, who in this one does not have the curse, like his family doesn't have the sickly curse. So like he's seeing this, and he feels this pressure. The clan head feels this pressure. Everyone there feels this pressure. As Tanjiro's blade would absorb it, and Tanjiro's blade would start to glow this ethereal purple. As then the absorption would be done, and he would be calm. His eyes would still be red, and he would be ready now. As he would resheath the blade, and there would be no aura or anything placed upon them. But the guy knew, okay, this kid is something else. Either that blade is made from a demon, or that kid is a demon. It's one of the two. But he would notice, like, okay, the sun is up. He ain't a demon, and if the blade was made from a demon, it would melt in the sun. So what is this blade? And that's because, like I said, the blade was kept secret. Like, most people know of the blade because it's only passed around from clan heads. But yeah, he wouldn't know about it since he's been a Hashira for so long. He hasn't heard of the blade. So the clan, he would explain his blade. This is the 1,000 Demon Dagger, and the name, like, they know the name of it. They don't know what the blade looks like, and so just hearing this would terrify the guy. But then he'd get a confident smirk. Wait, so that means you can't use a breathing style? Tanjiro would say, incorrect. I've made my own. I call it the 1,000 Demonic Breath Style. Almost fucked that up. The 1,000 Demonic Breath Style. And he would ask why. I have 1,000 forms, and none of them needs stances or a proper stance to use it. I just have to use them. I mean, I'm not forced to use them, but you know what I mean. The guy would, yeah, he would say that that's bullcrap, saying that Tanjiro couldn't possibly have 1,000 techniques since not even sun breathing has more than 13 forms. And Tanjiro would just tell him that he can show him all 1,000, but it'd take a while. And the guy, thinking that he's just playing with him, would rush at Tanjiro before even the match would start. He would grab Tanjiro by the scruff of his shirt as he'd pick him up, but Tanjiro would punch him in the face, and the guy would go flying as he'd say, "Don't grab my fucking shirt." And the guy would be laid out towards the edge of the arena. He would be half unconscious just from that one punch. But his resolve and now anger would boil over as he would stand up pissed as this son, the one from earlier, would show up behind him as he'd say, "Prepare to die, you piece of shit." And the clan head, sensing that this is getting out of hand, would go to intervene. But that's when Tanjiro would stand in his stance, the same one from a week ago. All right, I'm back. So he would get into the stance, the same one from a week ago, and he would look at the guy as he'd say, "All right, if we're doing this, let's do this right." As he'd remove his hood, as he'd say, "I don't want this getting in the way." And he'd rush him. And the guy would use Sun Breathing's first form, but Tanjiro would retaliate by using his first form, the demonic whip slash. And his shards, which have energy around them, would clash with the blade of his uncle. We're going to call him his uncle. And they would continuously clash as they would both continuously use, their forms until the guy would just start using dance, and Tanjiro would keep spinning around using his blade as if it were a whip. And this is only his first form. As the guy would say, "What? I thought you had 1,000 forms. Why only stick to one?" And Tanjiro would say, "You're right." And he'd jump back, switching to this stance as he would dash at him, as he'd say third form. And he'd say third form mixed with the 45th form. And this would be the first time anyone has ever heard of something like this, mixing two forms together. But, I mean, obviously they have mixed forms together to make different forms, but not using two forms at once. That's too draining. As he'd say, third form. He'd say demonic strike, and then 45th form. It was either 46 or 45. It was one of those two. But yeah, he'd say 40. I'm going to say 46. 46th form. He'd say consecutive thrust. Demonic consecutive thrust. My bad. And so he thrust at him once as it released a huge wind pressure when he blocked. As he'd go sliding back. But only to see multiple variations of, Tanjiro would be everywhere. As he'd say 46th form mixed with third form mixed with 112th form. As he'd say 112th form. Multiply. Demonic multiplication. Damn. It's hard to do. One second. My bad. Like I said, my cousin is very rude. And he walks into rooms without fucking knocking. Yeah, so ignore that. Hold on. Let me take a sip of water. Now, like I was saying, he mixed his third form, demonic thrust, with his 46th form, demonic what was it? Demonic consecutive thrusts. And now mixing it with his 112th form. Demonic it's crazy. Demonic multiplication. Why is it so hard to say multiplication? Multiplication. What the hell is that? Anyways, you would say demonic multiplication. Jesus, what the fuck is wrong with my vocabulary? Why do I keep trying to say F in multiplication? Anyways, he would make 5 clones of himself, which were just after images, but they don't know that since they can't tell, since they all seem to be moving at the exact same position towards him. And like I said, they're after images. He's just moving around so fast it looked like there's 5 of him. And Nezuko can see this as she can only see, like every like second or so he switches to a different position, and that's all she can see. Like he's moving faster than she can even perceive. The clan head can see it though. He sees Tanjiro is just moving around very quickly. Tanjiro's father can also see it since he's also OP, but the sickness got to him. And the Tokito clan leader can barely see it. He can only see as much as Nezuko can see, but he obviously doesn't have see-through world. And no one else in the Yorichi family, Tsuchikuni clan family has the see-through world besides Tanjiro, Nezuko, and their father. The clan head also has it, but only because he was taught it before his father died. He'd never passed on the skill since he assumed, like his father said, people can just unlock it. So he assumed if they were to become strong, they would unlock the skill. And so Tanjiro would appear, like I said, 5 of him, as multiple blades would be flying at this guy. And when I say not just like 5, there would be hundreds of blades, as these 5 silhouettes would be surrounding him. And hundreds of blades would be flying at him as he'd be getting cuts and scratches everywhere. He wouldn't get any stab wounds since Tanjiro wasn't aiming to stab him. As then Tanjiro would spin away as the guy would have multiple cuts all over his body. It would be hundreds and counting. As Tanjiro would switch back to the first form, demonic whip blade, as it would cut him all over. Like the previous cuts would now be X's, as all of these cut marks would have a line across them, as Tanjiro would then stop with his blade at the guy's throat, as he'd say, "Give up." And the guy would be on his knees, as he'd be shocked as hell. How did I just lose to a brat? There ain't no way, right? No, I'm the strongest. I can't lose to a kid. No. He wouldn't believe how strong Tanjiro was. Tanjiro is so strong that he beat him in mere seconds. Nothing else took place in this fight because the referee would come and get in between them. And the clan head would be, Shinobu would go over as the clan head would order someone to take him to a medic, but she would just go over and say that she'll take him to her mansion. By the way, they are at the headquarters, the Ashura headquarters, so where the master can see. And every clan head was there to witness the strongest Hashira get defeated by a child. And then they saw Nezuko, who was just smiling at this, as Tanjiro would hold out he'd do a peace sign at Nezuko, who would do it as she'd give him a thumbs up. And he'd hold out his thumb up at her and then turn it upside down and stick out his tongue. And then she'd start chasing after him, as he's still playful, but only to Nezuko. As they like to play around, they're still children. And so, obviously, they wouldn't... he's the strongest Hashira. And now the strongest Hashira is Tanjiro. And Nezuko would say that she'd fight him next, but the head would say there is no need for that since... By the way, Tanjiro and Nezuko did fight. It's just that Tanjiro decided to back out. Nezuko isn't as strong as Tanjiro, but she is still powerful in her own right. Tanjiro is just on another level, but he still cannot match up with the Yorichi of this universe. And the Muzan of this universe can sense someone is growing rapidly in power. He does not like that, so he would send Kokoshibo to go scout it, as he would see Tanjiro once more. But Tanjiro this time would be awake, and he would just be staring at him, as he'd ask him, "How many times are you going to spy on me?" And this would cause for Kokoshibo to dash at him, but Tanjiro would appear just like in the photo, with the blade through his neck, not at him. The blade would be through his neck. And Kokoshibo, already knowing the danger of this blade, would swing his blade up at Tanjiro, thinking, alright, this kid is definitely just gonna dodge. But Tanjiro would use shards from the blade to block, making a shield. But Kokoshibo would use his breathing style as moons would come out at him, as Tanjiro would jump away, as he'd use his second form, making the shield around himself, like the protective barrier shield around himself. And Kokoshibo, who had just been drained by a lot, would run away. As Tanjiro, knowing of moon breathing, would say that he's a coward. How can you create such a powerful breathing style, but kill your brother when he's weakened? And how dare you attack children? Are you that scared of us? Is your pathetic master that afraid of children? And this would cause Kokoshibo to turn around, but this would be a huge mistake, as a whip blade would be flying directly at him. But he would be teleported away with only a cut across his face. As even just from that cut, he would have been drained a lot, as he would fall to his knees, tired and exhausted. He would have a terrified look on his face, as as the upper 2 and 3, aka Doma and Akaza, would be shocked to see Kokoshibo in this state. Neither of them could beat him, and they haven't seen a Hashira who's strong enough to do this to him. So who could have done this? And he would just tell them, don't go looking for that kid. He's mine. As he'd be breathing hard until he'd eventually heal himself, and he'd say, I'm going to go train. As Muzan, he'd walk past Muzan, who would be terrified seeing Kokoshibo's state. As Kokoshibo would say, that kid is most likely his reincarnation. And that's where we're finally going to leave this part off. I couldn't make this fit. Actually, should I go to 2 hours? I might go to 2 hours. Now I'm going to just make this part 2. Yeah, so I was going to continue this, but I'm going to go put the end at the end of the other one and just make this part 2. So yeah. Or I could just add this to part 1 and then make part 2 later. Nah, I'm gonna end this right here. No? Nah, fuck it. Yeah, I'm gonna end this right here. Yeah, because I already said this is an addition, add-on to the other one. So yeah. I love everyone who enjoys my videos. Don't worry. I love motherfuckers who hate it too, because I love the criticism. Don't get me wrong. I have a love-hate relationship with everything I create. So anything you hate about a video I make, don't worry. I listen to it, I build upon it, and I try and fix it. I read and, I read every comment that I get. Don't worry. And I will be returning to YouTube soon. Now, these vocals have been great to make. It's just that my fucking voice and my English when I start to record is fucking annoying. Yeah, it gets annoying to do. But I fucking love making videos, so yeah, whenever I can't make a texting story or I don't feel like making a texting story, I'll make a vocal, and that's how I'm just gonna do things. But yeah, this is the end of part 1. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you're new, and talk shit about this video if you can. Not saying that you can't. I'm just saying if you have something to talk shit about this video about, by all means do it. I will listen to every last insult. Well, read every last insult or anything you have to say bad about this video and fix upon it. Yeah, so goodbye.